Chief Scarlette, thank you for sitting down with us today.
Yes, my pleasure. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak, for sure.
So before we get into it, how are you feeling about this chapter coming to a close?
Well, I think there's multiple feelings, one of which is relief, I'll be honest with you. 27 years in the law enforcement industry, I've seen a lot of things come and go, a lot of changes, a lot of good changes. And I think, as I end my tenure, it's just that opportunity to look back and be grateful and appreciative for all the wonderful things I've been a part of.
Yeah. You really, it's been an incredible, how many years have you been at the department now?
27 years.
27 years. So we will get into all of that, but I want to go back to your childhood, okay? Tell us about, you were raised locally. What was your childhood like? Were you around law enforcement?
Yeah, so born and raised right here in Springfield on the north end of town, and my father spent 30 years with the Illinois State Police, so I got to see him come home every night from work in uniform, and it was instilled in me at a very early age that was a career path that I felt that I had the calling for and wanted to follow in his footsteps, and did just that. And my father, who's since passed away, had the opportunity to see me walk across the stage graduating the police academy out at the Illinois State Police when I joined the Springfield Police Department, and that was a very special moment for me.
Do you remember, was there ever a specific moment where you were like, I'm going to be a police officer when I'm older?
You know, I don't know if I pinpoint a specific moment, but I can certainly, the memories that I do have, and I'll be honest, my next door neighbor is a friend of mine that we are college roommates, and he went on to be the police chief up in Normal right now, Steve Petrelli. And the funny thing is, all I remember with him growing up is playing cops and robbers or anything related to law enforcement. Like, that's all we ever knew. And so, again, I wouldn't necessarily pinpoint that one moment that said I'm going to be a police officer is kind of the only thing I've ever known.
Mm-hmm. And so let's kind of get into when you started. You briefly mentioned, your dad saw you when you graduated from the academy and stuff like that. What was it like beginning at SPD? Because that was 27 years ago. It's a lot different now.
Sure.
Tell us about that beginning process and some of the different roles that you served in before you became police chief.
Well, I think it's important to realize that 27 years ago, I was a young 21-year-old. So, I was still kind of growing up myself as it pertains to life, and I had a lot to learn. I was, very green behind the ears as it pertained to not only life, but also law enforcement. So I think back to a lot of older officers, if you will, at the time that I consider mentors and friends now, that kind of guided me through the law enforcement endeavors and the process, and I'm very grateful for that time that I had with them to kind of lead me on this path, which ultimately led to the chief of police position.
Mm-hmm. And you are really incredible at community. I feel as though this town, Springfield, you have really put some initiatives and put some things in place in your time, starting from not even just, in the recent years, but when you were an officer, fighting for certain community initiatives. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those initiatives that you put into place now as police chief?
Yeah, maybe it would be helpful if I go back and say that community is all I've ever known in life. I mean, again, growing up on the north end of Springfield, my community was family. Mom and Dad knew that if I was acting up down the road, the neighbor parents were going to take care of that. And that's all part of that community, building that trust and those bonds. And that's something that I feel is near and dear to my heart, and I kind of carried on with me into the law enforcement realm. That obviously this job involves serving and protecting and holding bad guys accountable, but there's another component, which is being a part of the community in which I was born and raised in, and part of that is helping those who can't help themselves, being there in people's worst days to help them through tragedies. And part of my experiences as a young officer, I got to be a part of the neighborhood police officer unit, Beat 300 on the east side of Springfield, and I made a lot of early connections when it came to key stakeholders in the community. And so I've kind of developed those relationships throughout my 27 years in law enforcement, and ultimately, again, when I got in the chief's position, I recognized just how valuable being invested in the community truly is. And you kind of see historically, from a law enforcement perspective, it's always us versus them. But why can't it be us together, you know, and maybe the them are the bad guys, and holding the criminals accountable. And so that's really something I focus on, is community policing, not just our neighborhood police officer unit, not just our homeless outreach team, but every man and woman that wears this uniform. They understand the value of community policing and how that can ultimately you know, help them when it comes to solving crime down the road, just building those relationships.
And at the end of the day, you are serving the public. You know, you are there to help them in any way necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the job of a law enforcement officer. That is the noble calling that those of us at the Springfield Police Department have chosen to take, is to be there for the public, to do whatever we can to keep this community safe. And I think we've worked extremely hard at that.
And we briefly talked about this earlier. Was leadership, police chief, was that ever an ambition of yours? Did you ever say, oh, I want to be the police chief one day, or how did that come?
Well, that's an interesting question, and maybe I don't have an exact answer to it. I can certainly tell you that growing up and then becoming a young 21-year-old police officer of the Springfield Police Department, I never had any intention of seeing myself as the chief of police. I always held that position, you know, as a very influential individual, a person with high esteem and high regard, and you know, I've had a lot of respect for the men that were the police chiefs during my tenure. And so, although I never expected to fulfill this role, you know, God had a different plan, and kind of the pieces fell into place. And you know, after 24 years on the department, I found myself with the opportunity to lead the men and women of the Springfield Police Department.
So you said you started in, what was it, neighborhood police unit?
Mm-hmm.
And then is that like patrol officer? Did you ever, what other, were you ever in any other departments? You know, because I know you guys have so many here. You have the detectives, you have the crime scene. You have a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is as the 7th largest law enforcement agency in the state, having all sorts of opportunities. And I myself am a perfect example of being able to take advantage of those opportunities. And I think the bigger question is, maybe what unit was I not associated with over the course of 27 years?
That's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. Each position, each unit, you find its own set of challenges, but at the end of the day, I've enjoyed each one. So I mentioned the neighborhood police officer unit. I was a member of our gang unit way back in the day. I was a member of our emergency response team, our SWAT team. I spent 13 years on that team. Been a part of our honor guard unit. I got to you know, serve our citizens of this community through the honor guard program. I was a sergeant in the criminal investigations division, getting to
Chief, you've done a lot.
And the list goes on, right? And honestly, that's been the great thing about this job, is just the opportunity to try different things and impact this community in several different ways by the different units I've been associated with.
And mentally, this job, it can be a lot. And I think it, like you said, every role, everything has its own set of challenges. But being in SPD, you know, has there ever been times where you're really mentally tested and it almost feels like, oh God, what are you doing? Like, I'm gonna follow you, but I'm not sure. How do you handle those situations as a leader? Because you have these young officers looking up to you, and it can be hard.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And Benny, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Behind this uniform and this badge is a real life human being, and oftentimes people take that for granted or forget the fact that those that sign up to protect and serve others and put their lives on the line are human beings who also have their own set of emotions and have their own set of issues going on in their personal lives at their house that they have to deal with. And I think that's extremely valuable. Number one, that the public realizes that, but more importantly, that the men and women who wear the uniform also recognize that you know, mental health and the trauma experienced in this job is a real thing. And so to be able to, as a chief, provide the necessary tools in place and be proactive in our efforts to take care of those who take care of others has been one of the major priorities in my tenure as chief. And to your question, stress is a real thing. And sitting in this seat for over 3 years, I've experienced my fair share of stress. And I'll be very honest with you, you have to recognize that from the get-go, that that is part of the job. And I've said in city council multiple times that I have big shoulders. I can carry the weight of this agency, and I think that's extremely important to demonstrate not only to the public but also to your officers that you support the great work that happens, and that you recognize that there is a mental challenge associated with it each and every day, and I want to make sure that the resources are available for our team so that we can take care of each other.
Yeah, because each officer, each person has to take care of themselves in order to be able to take care of others. If you are not able to handle that and you need help, it's so important just to ask for it. And that's what you and your assistant chief both said.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we want to proactively provide resources, provide opportunities, but it is up to the officers to also ask for that help. Unfortunately, when I think back in my brief tenure as chief, there were two separate occasions where I attended the funeral of a retired officer and an officer who had left the department, and they passed away as a result of actions that that resulted from the trauma of this job. And you see that across the country. And I think it's situations like that that really make you realize, again, that the men and women of law enforcement are real life human beings and that this job can weigh on you.
Yeah, and so I want to transition a little bit, okay? Retirement. You have announced your retirement, Chief Scarlette, just a few weeks ago. And all I have to say is, going back to community that we talked about, this community's outpour of support, of gratitude, hundreds and thousands of reactions and comments on you guys' post about this. How does that feel? How does it make you feel to know that this community really is grateful for you and it makes you feel like your work has really been done and good?
Yeah, and I hope that kind of says that we've accomplished our goal. And my goal was, again, to build that trust, build the relationships with the community, to instill in them that they can trust law enforcement and show them that we are here for them and with them, and that we work together to make Springfield a better place. And I've tried extremely hard to do that. And I think God blessed me with a big heart and an opportunity to make instant connections with people of this community. And so I work very hard at that. And I'm just grateful at the end of the day that hopefully I left this place better than when I found it when I took over as chief. And that's been my goal.
And community, I mean, what you guys do, the service, first responder, the whole industry, it's really relationship based. Wouldn't you agree? It's about building those relationships.
Law enforcement is about this, being able to look someone in the eye and have an honest conversation with them. And at the end of the day, we may not agree, but if we can accomplish the goal that we set out to do and do nothing more than speak, then we've won for the day. And that's ultimately what being a good police officer is about, using the power of your tongue to be able to accomplish something.
And what has this job, not just police chief, but being a law enforcement officer, what has it taught you as a human, as a person? What are some of those skills and lessons that you learned that you hope others can as well?
Well, I think my eyes were opened up very early in my career to the importance of having empathy and compassion. Certainly not everyone is blessed with the same opportunities as myself or others, and I think to be able to recognize that, give people a little bit of grace to know that we are all human beings and will make mistakes, myself included. And I think that's important to realize, is that just being there to take care of one another, like I mentioned previously, is so very important.
And so retirement, okay? I need to know about your family. Okay, Chief? I need to know, what was your wife's reaction? What was that conversation like? Hey, babe, I'm going to retire. What role has your family had in this choice?
Well, let me begin by saying I've been blessed with the opportunity to be married for my lovely wife, Tracy, for almost 25 years, and we have two awesome daughters, Addison and Sterling, and they are the three bosses in my life outside of this uniform, and I love them for that. And so certainly no major decision that I would make would go without conversation with all three of them. And my wife and I have had multiple conversations about next steps and when the time is coming. And it actually, a couple months previously, we were sitting at a local establishment having a local refreshment, if you will, and we said it's time to quit hemming and hawing about this, and let's make a decision. And ultimately, it was our family's decision that it was time to transition out of law enforcement. One thing I told my wife from the get-go as chief was that, in order to operate effectively in this position, you have to have your foot on the gas 100% of the time. And the minute you feel that hesitation, that's when it's time to recognize it's your point to step aside. And I think it takes humility to also recognize that your tenure is over and it's time to pass the baton to the next capable individual, which we have plenty of them in the senior staff. And I certainly am confident that this agency will continue to be successful.
So you have mentioned, you are excited to put the badge down, relax, spend time with family, and kind of start that next chapter of your life, but do you think you'll miss it?
What I will miss most are the people, and how the people of this community, and just as importantly, the men and women who wear the same uniform that I do, how they have impacted me. And that's something that the memories I will carry with me forever. And it's 27 years of people, right? So a lot of people have come and gone, and there are a lot of young officers that we have now that have impacted me. And I think that's what maybe people in this job don't realize, is how influential they are to me, and how much I learn and appreciate and live vicariously through some of the great law enforcement stories that I read from the great work that they do day in and day out. So I've been impacted tremendously by my fellow officers, and that's what I'm going to miss the most.
And I think all of Springfield has a question for you, okay? I think everybody wants to know, what does life for Chief Scarlette look like outside of this job and in retirement? Or do you have any plans?
I would say that chapter is yet to be written.
Okay.
I don't have any specific plans other than an opportunity to decompress, catch my breath, maybe refocus on what's important, as it pertains to family and life. I do feel that I still have, a servant's heart within me, and I know that there's another opportunity to lead and mentor and be influential in the lives of other folks. Maybe at a career field here locally. It's yet to be determined, so we'll see.
And for anybody starting their career in law enforcement, what advice would you give that young 21-year-old officer that you were one time? What advice would you give them in starting this career?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is to take a deep breath before speaking, and recognize that, as you're interacting with people, just how powerful and influential your words can be, whether that be positive or negative. And that, again, we are all human beings, whether you wear this uniform or whether you reside in this community. And so treat people with respect, treat people with compassion, be good to others, and ultimately you'll be successful in law enforcement.
And one last thing, Chief. This may be a hard question for you, but I think you got it. How do you want to be remembered? Not just as a chief, but as a human, as a person. You've mentioned a lot about this in this talk that we've been having today, but what would you like to reiterate again as to how you would like to be remembered?
Well, I think thinking on that, I would say he's the humble, shy guy that sat in the corner, that did whatever was asked of him, had a big heart, and was always willing to give back to the community that he had the opportunity to serve in, and that he loved and had that passion and that drive to put a smile on other people's faces, and to befriend others and just be a normal guy.
Well, Chief Scarlette, thank you so much for your time, and all of us here in Springfield are wishing you the best on your retirement.
Thanks, Benny. I appreciate that. And I just want to say one thing. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Mayor Misty Buscher and her staff for all the support that they've had for law enforcement, all the trials and tribulations that we've experienced here locally. We wouldn't be where we were without the mayor. And again, I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful for the men and women who I've got to serve alongside throughout 27 years. And for the men and women currently working, I'm proud of them and love the work they do every single day.
Well, Chief, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.